I'm Matthew Miner. I'm the Director of International Programs at MIT Solve, and I'll be your MC for this session, where we will be announcing our 2018 Solver class and nearly $1 million of prize funding. There's a lot going on in this session, including an enlightening conversation on bridging the Pioneer Gap, but I promise you, as long as I'm here, we will run on time. So before getting started, I want to especially thank our incredible finalists, who I think are over here, for taking the time to, first of all, submit your solution, and then coming all the way out here for the past 2 days and dealing with the stress and anxiety of that, which I'm sure has not necessarily been fun. But for most of all, I want to thank you for the work that you do day in and day out to make this world a better place. For those of you who are not selected today, I hope you found this a valuable experience and that you will stay in touch and you'll continue to update us on your work. To kick off the announcement of our Solver class, I want to welcome my colleague, Pooja Wag, to the stage, and she is the director of our health community.
Thank you so much, Matthew. I would also like to welcome Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, who is the chair of the Board of Gavi, the Global Alliance for Vaccines and Immunisations. Welcome, Ngozi. So Ngozi is also co-chair of the Frontlines of Health Challenge, and that challenge asked, how can communities invest in frontline health workers and services to improve their access to effective and affordable care? And now, what you've all been waiting for, the 8 Solver teams selected by the judges during this morning's pitches. I'm going to ask you to hold your applause until we've completed the announcement. First, we have Akiba Yaroho, Life Bank, Sexperto, I am going to ask you to come up to the stage when you hear your name. Thank you. Medicapt, Refugee Health Workforce, Neopenda, Ada Health, and eHEZA. Now you may applaud. Can I just move you to the end?
Okay, and everybody right here on 3. 1, 2, and 3. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ngozi, for chairing this challenge. So now to announce our 2018 Teachers and Educators Solvers, I'd like to invite my colleague Sarah Montevarro to the stage.
Congratulations to the Frontlines of Health Solver teams. My name is Sarah Montevarro, and I lead the learning community at MIT Solve. And I'd like to welcome to the stage Cynthia McCaffrey, the Director of the Office of Innovation at UNICEF. Our Teachers and Educators Challenge asked a question. How can teachers and educators provide accessible, personalized, and creative learning experiences for all? We're here for the moment you've all been waiting for. Here are the 8 Solver teams selected for the Teachers and Educators Prize. And if I can have, when you hear your name called, if you can come up to the stage, you'll shake hands with Cynthia and make your way across the stage and hold your applause until I've announced all of them. Talking points. Moringa School, Century, Livox, Storyweaver, Education Modified, Practical Education Network, and Aneza. Congratulations. Come on. Move all the way down. We're going to pose for them.
1, 2, and 3.
Congratulations.
Thank you, Sarah and Cynthia. So at MIT Solve, two of our values are partnership and open innovation. We believe that together we are much greater than the sum of our parts, and that through partnerships and collaborative thinking and design, we can do more than just move the needle on the global challenges we face, but we can uncover solutions that actually solve them. In this spirit, we have partnered with the Mohammed bin Rashid Initiative for Global Prosperity on their Global Maker Challenge, an online open innovation platform that offers an opportunity for makers and innovators to connect and collaborate wherever they are in the world to solve real-world problems affecting people's lives. So before I invite Badr Al-Alama, who is the head of the organizing committee of the Global Manufacturing and Industrialization Summit, of which this is an initiative, I'd like to invite you to watch this video.
This is our planet, divided between the rich and the poor, creating two stark realities.
Life is very hard. I'm struggle for everything. Then my child is not clothes, my child is not food for eat.
Some who enjoy their state of prosperity, and others who spiral further into poverty.
السكن كل حاجة تعبانة احنا تعبانين بأمانة يعني عشان نجيب ب5 جنيه عيش بنركب ب8 جنيه رايح جاي 8 جنيه عشان نجيب ب5 جنيه عيش
كلها بتعاني من الكهرباء.
People are getting poor, no job.
I don't see how it can get better in the future.
And with poverty, challenges become the norm.
We are very poor people. We haven't got money, we haven't got food, even got electricity up here. We have making some food outside on a fire.
And as 6.5 billion people move to urban areas by 2050, healthcare systems and basic infrastructure can start to collapse, spreading poverty and disease everywhere. We must create change, because it's almost too late. And the time has come for us to make a difference. This is our reality, and these are our challenges. We must find solutions to provide people with access to low-carbon electricity, regardless of where they live. We must find solutions to make broadband connectivity available and affordable to all. We must find solutions that help farmers eliminate hunger, not just for themselves, but for the rest of the world as well. And we must solve urban issues today so that our cities can endure and sustain living conditions, infrastructure, and healthcare systems for tomorrow. So, are you the one? If you were given the chance to change your life, what would you do? Because we believe that access to innovation paves the way to building prosperity.
So, to tell you more about the Global Maker Challenge and this initiative, Badr, please welcome to Solve. Thanks.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to start off by valuing partnerships. I think that's the most important topic today. It's about partnerships. And when I think about where we started off with MIT Solve, back in January, we've taken it towards actually launching this initiative in April. And now we're to the point where we've done 3 challenge workshops, identified what those challenges are, and we're launching it today in front of this audience. I think it is so important to find like-minded organizations that think alike and that, obviously care about the world. Because it's only through people like us, ourselves, that we can make a true difference. And just by way of an introduction as well, in terms of the Mohammed bin Rashid Initiative for Global Prosperity, His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum is the Vice President and Prime Minister of the United Arab Emirates. He is also the ruler of Dubai, and he is our humanitarian champion. He is our innovation champion. He has sort of recreated the way of thinking, the way of driving innovation in a little country that's somewhere buried in the Middle East, and we have stepped up. We have stepped out our game, and we're not limiting it to ourselves. We actually want to take this to the rest of the world. So, without further ado, the 4 themes that we had announced back in April, they were about sustainable cities, they were about sustainable energy, it was about digital divide and digital literacy, and it was about rural transformation and zero hunger. These things matter. They matter to all of us because it affects over 1 billion people in different parts of the world, and we take things for granted sometimes when we look at ourselves and we look at the places that we're at, New York, Dubai, London, wherever it is. There are parts of the world that wish that they can have reliable, affordable electricity, internet connection. They want to make an economic opportunity for themselves, and they don't have it. They don't get that opportunity. So, we're taking the first step, and we're putting $1 million worth of monetary prizes, coaching, mentorship, global access to global organizations, because we want to make a difference. We want to make a difference to the rest of the world. In terms of some milestones, on Tuesday, I'd encourage all of you, if you know someone, if you know solvers, you know makers, you know organizations, anyone, 8:30 a.m. on Tuesday, our website, our platform is going to go live. This is basically open innovation. We're trying to crowdsource partnership, trying to make a difference by bringing the maker community together. And then that one organization that is going to actually use its corporate social responsibility to promote social innovation is the one that we are going to award the Mohammed bin Rashid Global Prosperity Award. In January, we're going to close the submissions, and from then on, we're going to shortlist 3 top solutions per challenge. And we're going to invite them to the United Arab Emirates, and we're going to ask them to pitch in front of a multidisciplined judging panel, and we're going to award them next year. And this, again, ladies and gentlemen, is the beginning of a cycle that we hope companies, philanthropists, organizations are going to take it on board and work with us so that we can do more good things for the rest of the world. I guess my concluding statement, it's always sort of important for us to think about why are we doing this? And to me, personally, why am I doing this? Because I think, let me say that, no, I don't think. I believe inequality is ugly. Inequality is shameful. And inequality is unacceptable. So we all need to come together and try to make a change. However small it is, just a little change can make a big difference to the world. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Badr. So thank you, Badr. I encourage everyone to Tuesday morning or Tuesday at some point, look into the initiative's website and take a look at the Global Maker Challenges and submit your solution if you have one. And I'm also happy to say that we announced at Solve at MIT earlier this year on MIT's campus, but I'm happy to say that our Solver class will be fast-tracked as semifinalists for these challenges if they have a solution that addresses one of the challenges. So that said, we're going to start our panel on bridging the pioneer gap, and so therefore I'd like to welcome our three panelists and moderators: Cheryl Dorsey, President of Echoing Green; Noubar Afeyan, Founder and Senior Managing Partner and CEO of Flagship Pioneering; and Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, the Chair of the Board Gavi Vaccine Alliance; and our moderator, Leslie Picker, reporter, CNBC.
Hi there. What a great way to spend a Sunday. So inspiring, and I can't wait to showcase this panel because I think I've already learned a lot just sitting backstage, and I can't wait for everyone to share their wisdom with you as well. To kick things off, I thought it would be appropriate to start with some advice you might have to close the funding gap that we see. What advice do you have to the people in the audience? Maybe starting with you, Cheryl.
Sure. Thank you, Leslie, and thanks to everyone. I'm hoping everyone's had a good couple of days here. My name is Cheryl Dorsey. I am president of Echoing Green. We provide early stage funding and support to emerging social entrepreneur. And I just got very excited because I'm looking at an incredible Echoing Green alum, Rachel Micah Jones. Hi, Rachel. So good to see you. I am going to speak through the lens of a funder and intermediary that works every day to help these incredible early stage social entrepreneurs get farther faster. So hopefully those of you who are pitching today or who are out on the front lines trying to change your community for the better, there will be some actionable and tangible advice that you can take away and hopefully be helpful. So I made a few notes on my way over here. So things to think about as we try to bridge the pioneer gap. Number one is networks, right? So we all know, and those of you in the trenches understand how valuable networks are and the power and the social capital that resides in those networks for social entrepreneurs who are trying to build their enterprises and expand their influence and increase their access to resources and financial capital. I think that's one thing. I think another thing that we need to think about in terms of bridging this pioneer gap is just sort of a shift in mindset, and I sort of think about it in terms of horizons. Quite often, social entrepreneurs as disruptive and transformative social change leaders see tomorrow today. So they're making new markets. They are creating new business models that none of us are used to dealing with. So the need for longer time horizons, either to pay back debt or to get market traction, just takes a little longer. So for those of us who are investing in these social entrepreneurs, we just need to shift our time horizons. Third thing, we talk a lot at Echoing Green about doing more segmentation in the impact investing market. A lot of players out there, they're folks like us who provide grants, philanthropic capital, but then they're impact investors who are looking for a range of returns. It's kind of hard and cloudy when you're out there swimming in the stream looking for funding if you don't have a sense of what the investors' expectations are around social return or financial return. So if we can get more clarity around that, I think that helps all of us. Smaller investment sizes, especially for folks starting out, sort of the tranches of capital that investors are looking to place. Hard for early stage folks to absorb that kind of capital. So reducing check size, really important. And I've got more stuff on my list, but I'm going to stop here and can follow up with anyone if they want to hear more.
Excellent. Noubar, what advice do you have for bridging this gap, especially with your work up in Boston?
So my connection to this community is really twofold. One, Flagship Pioneering is a company that's involved in science-based innovations and most of what we do is create our own companies and launch them and capitalize them. So while the projects we work on have significant social impact, whether it's in healthcare or agriculture, and some of these are extremely kind of transformative ideas, they're not done through the kind of traditional entrepreneur pitching and us investing route because of our model, which I'm happy to talk about a little bit later. But then on the other hand, I've been involved in a lot of social impact projects through philanthropy, in particular in a particular country that I happen to have a connection with historically. And there it's a complete night and day difference. So I actually can compare the two parts of my life. And at the end of the day, I'd say at a high level, there's a lot of specific things we can get into. I think those are good suggestions. But at the end of the day, I think it's really important that you find a way to describe the value that's being created. Sometimes people talk about impact, but actually if you want investment, there has to be some version of value. And that impact, if it's just that this is important, unfortunately we have many more important things than we could reasonably attract capital for. And so while the definition of value may be different between a social entrepreneur's world and a non-social entrepreneur's world, if I can call it that, I think that that's not a good enough reason to avoid the topic altogether. And I hope maybe when a part of the discussion can go to that. I really worry that we haven't yet figured out a way to unlock, if you will, the definitional problem and the equivalence problem. In other words, if we could value the impact in ways that we're usually valuing impact in otherwise technology companies, life science companies, et cetera, then we could actually start making resource allocation decisions differently. Unfortunately, right now, there's one place where money is the definition of the return, and another place where a lot of words are the definition of return. And I'm sure at some point, money was also replaced by lots of words in the other economic sphere, except there was a currency and there was a way to think about equivalence. And I at least would love to find a way to bridge that gap. I think that is a pioneering gap that would unleash a lot of economic resources that are pent up because of a definitional problem. Everybody defines impact in completely different ways. And so what I see right now is that people package problems to fit the definition of impact to the person they want to raise money from. That's a really tough, tall order, in my view, because it's a retail approach versus the opposite. So I'll stop with that, but that's just one thought that I think is worth working on.
So maybe a big hurdle is this idea that you can't necessarily build a discounted cash flow model currently to value a social impact project in a way that you would value a non-social impact project.
I guess my question is, I'm just challenging people that maybe you can.
Maybe you can.
I think maybe you can, by opportunity costs and other ways. I think maybe you can. I just challenge the people here who've convinced us that they can't, that they try anyway. I think that we don't yet have the language for it, but they shouldn't just give it up and say, I'll tell you what you want to hear so that I can get resources from you. That is not a good idea long term. I think that's not scalable. So we've got to insist on figuring a way to talk about value in a commonly understood way.
And Ngozi, what do you think? How can we bridge this gap?
Well, I was listening carefully to Cheryl, who is actually running such an enterprise. I was just going to agree with her on networks. I think the biggest thing is networks, expanding your networks and making partnerships. And the partnerships is not always about money. Many of the contestants came here and said partnerships are about capacity, about ideas, about exchange and moral support. It's about so many other things. So if you aggressively, sometimes you can get far more from some of these networks and partnerships than money. But even then, for instance, Gavi, as chair of Gavi has an innovation contest or fund called Infuse, in which we try to also invite young people with ideas on the health sector that could help with, let's say, vaccine cold chains. How do we improve that? Or ideas to reach what we call the fifth child, the hard to reach child to vaccinate. And we encourage young people with ideas to come forward and help us do that. So if you can search out the kinds of partners that are doing work in the area you're interested in, that would be another way to get them engaged. They may have a particular fund that you don't see on the Forbes 100 list, but it's there, and that's another avenue for you to explore. But I just want to say one thing. Even with these networks, one of my problems is the networks certain parts of the world don't even get connected. So you have many young people with bright ideas on the African continent, but hardly do they get invested in. And maybe only a drop in the bucket, one or two of them can come up to a challenge like this. So my question to venture capitalists and others is, how do we also invest in emerging market young people in developing countries? How do they get connected? Because their networks, they can't even connect to these networks.
How do they get their ideas heard?
Yeah, how do they get their ideas heard? We have to take Solve to them. We have to go do regional Solve maybe. So we can get those in Abuja, Lagos, Nairobi, Kampala, and so on, who cannot get here. And we'll get closer to them. So some of the ideas, Solve is fantastic, but how do we take it closer to the people, to the inventors?
To where the ideas are. And Cheryl, I think that brings up a really important topic, and that is of the bottleneck that exists in the pipeline for social impact. What do you see as the biggest hurdles now, and what do you see as solvable ideas for how to get more of these ideas funneled through that pipeline into actual execution, into making a difference?
Sure, big question. I'm sure a lot of us in this audience think about this a lot. And most of the time you hear people talking about sort of the combination of not enough investment-ready deal flow and not enough sort of immediately flowing capital. Both important, but I think sort of the devil's in the details and unpacking both of those. I bristle a little bit around sort of the investment readiness question as an organization, as a community that really strives for diversity, equity, inclusion of who is an entrepreneur and what do entrepreneurs look like, overrepresented by women, people of color, proximate leaders. Investment readiness often sounds, it's sort of the clarion call around implicit bias that lives in a lot of our systems, right? And so people have a particular idea of what an entrepreneur looks like. And there's terrific research from groups like Andy that have looked at, startup entrepreneurs that are in emerged markets versus emerging markets. And quite often, the entrepreneurs in emerging markets are more well-educated, have much more experience. Their business models are farther along, yet nonetheless, they're not raising as much capital. So there are lots of reasons for that, but I do think you cannot discount this question around bias. So I think it's never one solution. There's never one tool in the toolkit. There are lots of things that we have to think about doing. Everything from how do you actually customize support to meet the entrepreneur where she is. You need the right support for the right entrepreneur at the right time. That's certainly one thing. I think in addition, you do, getting back to Ngozi's point, this importance of networks. It's so incredibly powerful, and we don't think enough about building out and bolstering networks, especially local networks. I'm going to leave here and in a couple days head back to my hometown in Baltimore, Maryland, where there's a vibrant social impact scene, especially in light of the killing of Freddie Gray a couple of years ago. And there are a bunch of folks on the ground in West Baltimore thinking about how do we rebuild the entrepreneurial spirit and opportunity for proximate leaders. That's leader to leader in community who know one another, who see one another at the grocery store, at the local religious institution. That's how you get it done. So we've got to do that. And I think last but not least, I think there's a whole piece around sort of finding talent to help these enterprises grow, especially in emerging markets. So again, it's a laundry list, but you got to do all of them.
Noubar, what do you make of the responsibility of the private sector? And we hear all the time about PPP, public-private partnerships. How do we get more of the private sector to participate in social impact investing? What do you see as a way that could potentially help them become more active in this world?
Boy, that's a heavy-duty question.
That's what I'm here for.
Heavy-duty question. I think there's probably kind of like maybe I say it crudely, defensive reasons and offensive reasons. I think we just heard in the last section the ending comments about inequality. Inequality is a recipe for an unsustainable economic system. And I think that if the beneficiaries of the economic system, which have to include investors, do not take that as a frankly defensive reason to think about it. It's not the only reason, but I think that is a first thing that people are choosing to ignore But I think that is just unsustainable. Now, exactly where that moves you to is something that we can discuss, but that you need to make that part of the overall kind of commitment that you have, I think is important. I think that the opportunity-driven reason is that there is now this avalanche, I'd say, of ideas that are actionable, that can create value, and notwithstanding what I just said, some measure of value, in all sorts of kind of places that nobody would have even thought of. So let me give you my own experience is that I'm an immigrant to this country. 31 years ago, I started a company, and at the time, at 24 years old, no immigrant, no young person would ever be given a cent to start a company with. Mm-hmm. Today, everything and anything is investable, and what we're now seeing in the pictures that I saw earlier, in that it's coming from all over the world. And I think that we sometimes forget just how new this is. I think people think that this is just more small, medium-sized enterprise. It's just not. In my own life experience, this is a completely new phenomenon. The fact that the folks were getting up on stage and confidently presenting value propositions, how they're going to get at it, what the need is. This is 10 years ago, in my view, there was 1/100th of this. And 20 years ago, you'd have to look really hard. So I think part of this is also just kind of happening. And I'll say one last thing, just makes not appropriate maybe, or relevant to the question, but I do think this is very much an immigrant mindset-driven process, not an immigrant-driven process. For many years, research was done to figure out why immigrants in this country ended up in startups. And that's because, one, they had less to lose, and two, they had physically experienced what it's like to survive and then to revive and eventually try to thrive. Well, guess what? That mindset actually is alive and well in all the global entrepreneurial movement, because these are folks that are actually doing this kind of from the soul, from the gut. This is not a rational kind of here's why I'm going to do this to make X amount of money. And that immigrant mindset is such an advantage. And when we hear about all these refugee crises, in my view, 20, 30 years from now, it would be interesting to go back and look. Much of the innovation that is happening in places where innovation is stalled, I think, will come from that wave, which is, I know, not politically correct to say, but inevitably true. These are organisms that are highly evolved to evolve, and that's what innovation is. Innovation is not for comfortable people who think that society owes them much. Immigrants don't think society owes them much. So just as a thought, I think we've got to get societies, even in this country, to understand that this is a whole new movement, and investors to understand.
Mm-hmm. And Ngozi, you have served in the government as finance minister, as foreign minister. How do you think social impact communities should be working better with governments? Or do you have any advice or prescriptions in ways in which social entrepreneurs can be, create a better partnership, a better network with the government, especially in the emerging markets in which they are participating? And what would you say to those who see the government as a potential obstacle, whether it's due to corruption, bribery, lack of openness toward the types of programs that they're trying to create?
Thank you. Well, let me start from there. Governments are often obstructions, to small and medium enterprises, because they don't yet, and to venture capital, and people who are just starting new businesses, because many times they don't often understand that this is where most of the jobs are created in the economy and in society, and therefore that they have to go the extra mile. And we just have some problems that are also obstacles in themselves: lack of infrastructure, poor electricity, poor communications, and so on and so forth. But there's a willingness once the government becomes aware. So there's some amount of education of the government itself that needs to happen. So I would really urge, young people who are starting in this space, or even older people who have new ideas, coming together to form a community that can then also do outreach to the government is very important. Because government wants the private sector to create jobs. They realize they can't do it. So it's not that they are willfully trying to obstruct. It's just that they are not aware just how important and vibrant this is. So the answer to, I saw that, once people in government realize that, wow, these ideas can lead to thriving businesses, that everybody becomes very enthusiastic and then starts looking at what policy framework there is. For instance, can we give a tax holiday if these people start these enterprises for a period of time so they don't pay, so you are not knocking on their door just when they have no infrastructure, and instead of supporting them. So we need to have outreach from this community to government. They need to come together themselves to try and organize in some of our developing countries. Government needs to become more educated. When in Nigeria, when I was a minister, and we saw clearly that we needed to get more jobs created, because we've got a situation in which 60% or more of our population is 25% and under. You have young people. We have a demographic reality. Now, if we manage it well, it will be a dividend, and it could really enrich us. If we fail in managing it, it will be a problem. So we started thinking, how do we do this? And it was, how do we create jobs for those, who are under 40, who are entrepreneurs? And so we began to reach out. We created a program called You Win, Youth Enterprise with Innovation. And if you were under 40, you could apply for this on merit to avoid the specter of corruption. You go to the website, you log in, you apply, you contest. Initially, people didn't even believe it. They said, no, there can be no such thing in Nigeria where you just go and on merit you apply. There must be some fix. But once they found out that, no, this was really working, young people flocked to this. And we had thousands of applications. So that was government reaching out, and we were giving grants of from $10,000 to $90,000. That's real money. The government set aside a pot of money to do this. I'm telling you this story to say that once the realization in cabinet and the president and so on, that this is a big avenue to encourage young people, a fund was actually put together to support innovation. And so young people reached out, we reached out to them, and it worked.
And Noubar, you mentioned a few questions ago about a country that you're doing work in. Do you have any anecdotes you can share about potential obstacles that you have encountered in doing social impact work in that country, as well as ways that you have overcome them as you are trying to help build industry and infrastructure and other avenues for social improvement?
Sure. So, not to make it very mysterious. So this country, so I'm from my national kind of background is from Armenia. And this is a small, Soviet country that's about 3 million people that after the Soviet Union collapsed basically was a very, very poor country with no economic infrastructure, because as many of you may not know, in the Soviet Union they made sure that no one country could make what it needed to survive, so that they were interdependent, which meant that when the Soviet Union collapsed, nobody could actually fend for themselves unless they had oil. And so the only countries that have not become extremely poor countries are the countries that have natural resources that the West basically helped them pull out as much as they could. So in this country, 3 million people is not a small, is a relatively small country. And, of course, the governments that came in the beginning, kind of democracy, I learned has many, many different shades of gray. So it was kind of a, the notion of elections, et cetera. These were new things culturally. And you could see that the, corruption, quote, had many forms it manifested itself. But in economic development, what we learned, I've been doing this for the last 17, 18 years, what we learned, you've made a very important point, that we needed to invest, particularly many of us were kind of diasporans, if you will. We were not in the country, but we were trying to bring expertise and capital and relationships, connections to the country. So the government just needed to be educated. There was no, and elected officials don't think when they wake up in the morning, can you educate me? I mean, it's just not a, because they've convinced the populace that they already know everything.
They think they know
so
it all.
The notion that, so I think just the notion that they can privately get exposed to all different ways to think about it. In this case, it was interesting because there were a lot of diasporans who kind of started getting engaged, and they almost kind of felt like they could get the world's expertise and not show that that's the case. I think the other thing is that there's a lot of demands put on these countries by investors which they cannot meet. So the notion that you're going to overnight become transparent, democratic, business is completely detached from government, which is the demands all the foreign investors want to put on these countries, just unachievable. And so there were just, the learnings were, you got to work with the folks that are they can get in your way, so that at least you can discourage them from that. The only other thing I'd say is over that period of time, I've kind of, and I'd be interested in what experiments have been run. I mean, one of the problems is that an elected government is accountable to the people who elected them. Innovation and long-term change actually matters to 4-year-olds that can't vote. And so it's never the case that a 4-year-old's voice can be heard, and the only voices that will be heard are the people who demand action now to reduce poverty now. And so the short-term nature of their accountability, I think, drives things away from innovation. So I've found in the World Economic Forum setting, for example, where people get together and talk about innovation as the answer to everything, that innovation has become this magic concept. It's almost become like somehow we're going to get divine intervention and it's going to solve poverty and food shortage and energy. I mean, honestly, I've been to a lot of these meetings, and my role there has been largely to say, don't bet on innovation. Not because they shouldn't bet on innovation, but because they're betting on innovation as kind of all the things that are supposed to happen that they don't take responsibility over as a government because they're busy trying to deal with current here and now. So the question is, how can you bring the interests of people who can't vote to the equation? And I'm not saying every government's this way, but at least the governments I've seen, I think, are very short-term nature, just like corporations are, because they are accountable today. So, that's something that I wish innovation would rather have 4-year-olds voting, not 50-year-olds who are worried about the here and now. There's a disconnect there.
It's a change of incentives. I know we are almost out of time. Can I ask one more question to Cheryl real fast? And this goes to the idea of betting on people, just real quickly. If we kind of reshape the way we think about betting on innovation, how do we bet on people? As you speak with entrepreneurs, as someone who seeds them, what do you look for? Just super, super quickly.
Sure. I mean, again, Echoing Green has been at this over 30 years, and it's people change the world. And again, all of our thinking is contextualizing the power of social movements to change the world. So, innovation is important, but at the end of the day, you achieve large-scale change at scale through social movements. You change hearts and minds, and then norms and governments follow, just the way that history works. So in many ways, we're sort of looking for all of the things that are entrenched within the soul and the heart and in the brain of great social movement leaders. We have a whole framework around it, but there is sort of this transformative spirit that not only sees tomorrow today, but really is passionate about equity and justice for all. So that's part and parcel of it. But I do want to leave on a couple notes of positive. Like, I feel like we're in this generational moment, and demography is destiny. And when you've got this millennial bubble, it is a huge opportunity for all of us. And again, I drank the Kool-Aid a long time ago that these young folks are really going to get it done. So I'm really excited about the opportunities and possibilities to solve problems that a lot of us have created and did not figure out. But it was great to be on this panel with Ngozi, who's just such an extraordinary leader. And more the young people we invest in are coming from the continent of Africa. A third of our pipeline is coming from these dazzling young folks from the continent. And interestingly, in May, we heard from one of our social entrepreneurs, Jahil Oliver, Nigerian-American, who signed a historic deal with the Federal Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development in partnership with the government, John Deere, and his organization, which is like Uber for tractors, to get 10,000 tractors to farmers on the ground to increase productivity and improve sustainable farming. That's really great news, right? And it pushes back against the notion that government is the problem. Government has got to be part of the solution. And I think increasingly what I'm loving about the social entrepreneurship movement is, whereas in its founding spirit, it was like government is broken, stay away from it. It's the recognition that, in fact, until government, business, and the social impact sector work together, we are never going to figure this stuff out at scale. So again, I remain hopeful, and I think we're going to figure this out.
That's a really great note to end, right?
Yeah, that's a perfect note to end on. Thank you, guys. Thank you so much.
Great job.
All right.
Leonard Dale, and I'm the Senior Officer for Solve's Sustainability Community. I'd also like to welcome on stage with me Paul Robinson, who's the Executive Director of RISE, a nonprofit based in Norfolk, Virginia, that we've that we've been working with throughout our Coastal Communities Challenge. This challenge asks, how can coastal communities mitigate and adapt to climate change while developing and prospering? And we're here for the moment that you've all been waiting for, which is announcing the 9 solver teams that were selected by our judges after this afternoon's pitches and very contentious deliberation. I'm going to ask you to hold your applause until all of the announcement is over. In no particular order, the selected solvers are Greenkeeper Africa, Cold Hubs, Maritime Blockchain, Highland Rice Farming, Greenstream, IC Change, Wave 2.0, Grow Oyster Reefs, and Marauder 1. And Paul, we want you on that. Everyone together for a photo.
Thank you, Alexander.
Everybody right here? And right here on 3. 1, 2, 3. And then 1, 2, 3. Thank you, guys.
Perfect.
So thank you, Alexander and Paul. Okay. So when Alexander mentioned contentious sort of deliberations, he wasn't lying. What's happening backstage, I wish you could experience it, the running back and forth and the challenge. The judges really take this seriously. I mean, it's... Anyway, point is, we're about to announce our final additions to the Solver class for the Work of the Future Challenge. After that, we'll announce the winners across a couple, or the prize recipients across a couple different prizes that add up to about $1 million. So I'd like to invite Hala Hanna, our Managing Director of Community.
Thank you, Matthew. Thank you. All right. Where do I start? You got to scroll a little bit more. Okay. I don't want to get Tina's title wrong. I want to welcome on stage Tina George, Global Co-Lead of Delivery Systems, Social Protections, and Jobs at the World Bank Group. Tina is representing Jim Kim, President of the World Bank Group and Chair of Seoul's Work of the Future Challenge. Now you can applaud. So the challenge asked, how can those most affected by the technology-driven transformations of work create productive and prosperous livelihoods for themselves? And now, a very Oscar-like moment that you've all been waiting for. We have selected our 8 solver teams with our judges. And I'm going to read out the 8 names one after the other. So I'm going to be a downer and say, do not applaud, okay? Don't upset the pregnant woman. Don't applaud until the end, okay? Good. All right. Everybody ready? Link. Aptly, you're going to have to come up on stage, shake the hand of Tina, and stand with me right here. Link, Aptly, Plastics for Change, Contratados.org, Ultra, Shimmy Upskill, Refactored.ai, and Virtual Grasp. Congratulations! Thank you.
All right, folks. This is almost over, I promise. This is where the real fun begins. Not that the past hour hasn't necessarily been fun, but this is when we get to dole out some real cash. So we're going to have some of Solve's incredibly generous partners come on stage and announce the prize recipients, $950,000, which is in addition to the $2.6 million that was announced by the Atlassian Foundation and the Australian government this morning. So, to kick things off, please welcome our Executive Director, Alex Amoyel, and Ken Kelzer, Vice President of the General Motors Company. Thank you.
That the fun was over back there. I don't know what that meant. I don't know what you guys have been doing out here. Well, I get the dubious distinction of passing out some additional funding and some awards here. So let me go through this. And first off, I'd like to thank you, Matthew, and the MIT Solve team. I got to tell you, this was a really first-class, professionally run operation, and thanks to everyone that was involved, as well as to the thousands of applicants who dedicated themselves into making this place, this world, a better place. This has been a truly exhilarating experience. The optimism, the partnership, the open innovation, emphasis on human-centered solutions, and desire to utilize technology to address the world's most pressing problems are all values that GM shares with MIT Solve. We believe that the future of personal mobility will be driven by the convergence of electrification, autonomous vehicles, connectivity, and shared mobility services. And the auto industry is experiencing both an unprecedented evolution and revolution, and our success will be entirely dependent on skilled workforce that can help us develop the mobility solutions of the future. So we are committed to preparing today's students and tomorrow's workers. And that's why we were here, because there are so many great solutions and brilliant people involved in Solve. It was difficult to choose only 2 teams within the work of the future and teachers and educators challenges. However, through a rigorous selection process, we've come to a decision. In the work of the future category, teams rallied to employ advanced technology to help improve economic security, career flexibility, and new income streams for workers. So I am pleased to announce the first recipient in the work of the future is Refractored AI. I think Ram is here. Congratulations. Congratulations. The second recipient of Work of the Future is the Virtual Grasp. I think Jacob, I saw you in the room here. Nice work. Nice job. Really nice. In the teachers and educators category, teams were charged with employing advanced technology to provide affordable and accessible training to educators, facilitating the personalization of learning for diverse students, and holistic approaches to teaching STEM. This is so vital to many careers in the future, and I am pleased to announce the first recipient in teachers and educators is Talking Points. EJ? Congratulations. Outstanding. Congratulations. That's great. The second recipient in teachers and educators is Levox. Carlos. Yeah. I just came back from Brazil to see you here. Yeah, so congratulations. Congratulations to the Solver teams. We're looking forward to working with you over the next year to help you scale your work and create new opportunities in an ever-changing economy. For GM, supporting STEM education and open technological innovation initiatives like MIT Solve, we must be taking a photo here, certainly, brings us closer to cutting-edge innovators and innovations for transportation technology now and in the future. Thank you everyone for allowing us to be part of the MIT Solve community and challenges. We are excited to continue our work in the 2018 Solver class, and GM is proud to support innovation that will address the world's most complex problems and move humanity forward. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, Ken. Okay, so to move things along, for our next prize, I'd like to welcome McGovern Foundation trustees Liz McGovern and Vilas Dar.
Thank you so much, and thank you so much to the MIT Solve community. It was really an exciting few days. The laboratories of MIT are where my father developed his twin passions, augmenting the creativity of the human mind with technology and creating access and democratizing that technology across the globe. His decentralized approach to his technology media company, IDG, was built on the fundamental belief of finding and supporting entrepreneurs worldwide to drive the mission forward. Consistent with his legacy and his optimism, we are honored to be here today to support your work, your entrepreneurial spirit, and your passion to be world change makers.
So Patrick left a profound gift to humanity, endowing a foundation with twin missions to think about how neuroscience and information technology could change the world for the better. And as our society marches towards more augmentation and automation, I think we all share a common responsibility to think about increasing equity, access, justice, humanity, and dignity in a new world. Today's solvers represent the innovators at the forefront of that commitment. Patrick's twin values, now core to our foundation, were always a sense of optimism and a let's try attitude. And as trustees of his legacy, we're proud to support and honor all of the solvers in this room today. We're also happy to announce the recipients of the prize, the AI Prize for the Betterment of Humanity, and we are very happy to welcome them, and Liz is going to unveil them.
Yes. It was challenging. We spent a long time deliberating on the final recipients, but congratulations to all. You all were deserving. We decided to choose one solver from each of the 4 challenges. And these solvers will receive $25,000 each. And then in May, we will announce one finalist who will receive $100,000. This was really an exciting opportunity, so thank you. So without further ado, we have I See Change as the first.
Let's have them come up and we'll do a picture. Congratulations.
So much. Oh. Congratulations. Well deserved. We have the second, Refractored AI.
Why don't you step down? Congratulations.
Congratulations, thank you. The third, Levox.
Congratulations.
And the final recipient today is Ada for CHWs. Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Good? I think we're good. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Congratulations. Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, I'd like to welcome Kevin McAnder, Senior Director of Social Innovation Partnerships from Save the Children. Thank you.
Hello, thank you everybody, especially the solvers. None of this would be possible without your effort and your hard work and your creativity, so thank you. Thank you to all the members of Solve. It's wonderful to be a part of this wider family. Save the Children has been part of Solve since it launched, and the reason why is because over a 100-year history working on our mission for children is we've learned that we cannot do it alone, and we've learned that we cannot continue to do the same thing, especially if we want to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals. And so today, we're very excited to announce the Save the Children Innovation Award to 4 solver teams that we feel are really at the heart of our mission for children, that we think can make our work better, and we look forward to collaborating with them in the field. So without any further drama, we will announce the 4. So we have Hila Azadzoy and Ada for community health workers. We have Wendy Lendard and E. Heza. Thank you. Congratulations. So everyone come on all up. We'll take a photo at the end. Adam Grunwald and Link. And Hee Jae Lim with Talking Points. Congratulations. You're welcome. So congratulations to all of you. You're doing wonderful work, and we look forward to collaborating with you in the field. Oh, and I should have mentioned, this is a $100,000 prize split across the 4 of you, so $25,000 each for you to continue your great work.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, here, everybody come in.
Thank you. Okay, a couple more announcements, and then you can all go toast our new Solver class over some wine and hors d'oeuvres. Kindly join me in welcoming Phumzile Mlongo Nguka, the United Nations Undersecretary General and Executive Director of UN Women, and Allison Irving, Vice President of City FinTech.
Thank you very much and good evening. We have a pleasure of bringing to you this wonderful, innovative woman as She Innovates, which is an initiative of UN Women with a number of partners that include CT and SAP and a whole list of others. We will be celebrating one of the women. I hear that they already won something, so they'll be coming back to the stage. So they are the winners of winners. And of course, my partner here from City is actually here to help us, help you and me hand over this prize. And the prize will go to Neo Penda. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
I can keep it for you.
Oh, in between?
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Okay, and for our final prize announcement of the day, welcome back Sarah Manabaro from Solve.
Hi, everyone. We are so delighted that through the generosity of an anonymous donor, we are able to provide 6 of our Solver teams from the Teachers and Educators Prize with $25,000 in grant funding. So here they are. Century, Education Modified, Practical Education Network, Storyweaver, Moringa School, and Aneza. Congratulations. Come on up, and we're gonna come as close this way as you can for a photo. And Alex, we had a remote picture, so they're not gonna be with us. Look at all these ladies, fantastic. Okay, let's pose for a photo. Thank you so much, congratulations.
So let me be brief because we all want to get to refreshments and celebrate with the winning solvers and also commiserate and thank the finalists and connect them with lots of other people to really help them also succeed. First of all, an update compared to this morning. I asked this morning if anybody had a spare $50,000. I'm actually happy to say that we did manage to find this. Several people came up to me and said, who were very generous and said, if you'd told me last week, I could have got some sign-offs and got you this. But I'm really happy to say that Noubar Afeyan, the CEO of Flagship Pioneering, was able to say that he would get us to the $1 million. So I'm happy to say that we are going to have a flagship prize that we will determine later on who gets it, but that we'll be able to announce that we have $1 million for the new Solver class. So thank you very much, Noubar and Flagship. And I've got obviously everybody else who wants to, come and talk to me. But I want to thank Solve's amazing staff, our volunteers, our members, our sponsors. Without you, none of this would be possible. We could not do what we do if we only had one side of the marketplace, i.e. the the innovators. We need people who can help us with their expertise, their resources, their time. Give us feedback, make us better, input on our next set of challenges, mentor our solver teams, and with your resources, help them scale, please. We're not a conference. This was not a conference. It's not MIT. It's all of you, leaders connected by the desire to make good in the world and acting to improve on millions of lives. Our solver teams can only be successful if this today is just the beginning and not the end. If you all follow up with the great connections you made here today and help us turn these into meaningful partnerships that will move the needle on the 4 global challenges. Join Solve as a member or partner, mentor solvers, give us input, support one of our solver teams with financing or in-kind resources, bring us new prizes, such as the great ones that you saw announced today. Sorry, I'm waiting for my remarks to come further up. There's a lot of things you can do throughout the years. You can participate in challenge design workshops as well as solver workshops that we'll be hosting this fall and winter. And then Solver MIT, which is the capstone experience for our solver teams, is May 7th to 9th, 2019. Mark your calendars. Please come talk to my staff. We would love to have you. Yep. Sorry, I don't know what's happening with the remarks. So, no, you have to go back. No, further. No, yeah, okay. We cannot do this. Okay, never mind. I look forward to seeing how these projects, I'll just forget about the remarks. Sorry about that. But basically, really look forward to seeing how all of your projects evolve. Whether or not you were successful today, keep in touch and apply next year, or tell us why we got it wrong not picking you the first time and how amazing work you're doing. If you're a finalist, thank you for all your time. And then with the solvers, look forward to really discovering who you are, to working with you, and to getting this great community to help you accelerate your work. Thank you so much, and happy solving, everybody.